We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk, 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1000 KKIM in Albuquerque, New Mexico, 1410 KARI here in Kern County, and on the internet on knookmedia.com, serving Richmond, Oakland, and the San Francisco Bay Area. Our guest for the hour, one of our very, very, very favorite guests, State Senator Gene Fuller. So, Gene, let's see. Clay, are you out of questions, you said? Would you like me to ask a question or two? Or
I really would like you to ask at least one.
At least one? Okay, let me see. Let me go through my list here. Hey, listen. I understand that you were appointed to a committee as a chairman, which for a Republican is a novel idea in Sacramento.
Yes, I'm very pleased because we've been working on the Valley Fever project with Kevin McCarthy, and I've been appointed to be the chair of the Valley Fever Senate Select Committee.
Wow.
And I'm real excited because I think that helps give us more visibility into our area. Where I have a bill that's trying to appropriate some money to help work with Valley Fever,
Sure.
especially research in our area.
Now, Valley Fever, I remember listening to a lecture on Valley Fever. It happens here, but it also happens in Arizona, right?
Oh, yes. There's 5 other major areas across 4 states that have exactly the same issue because it's a kind of spore that is in areas like where you find shark's teeth and things like that.
Shark's teeth?
Yeah. You know how
I didn't know that.
That area was underwater many millions of years ago, and so when there's archaeological digs and things like that.
I'll explain it to him later.
Okay.
Because he was there. He could explain it to me later.
Yeah. And so our area has, a considerable piece of land that has that
I didn't
kind
realize
of soil.
that. So we had sharks here at one time.
Yes.
Now we have
I have
land
a whole
sharks.
collection of shark's tooth when I was a kid digging up before I knew that was the Valley Fever possibility if you were digging up shark's teeth.
Wow.
You probably can't farm that land because they're probably protected.
It's mostly there's no water under those kinds of areas. In this case, it's out on sort of the foothills.
I think it's a goofy Friday afternoon today.
Well, it is a little goofy, just like the legislature. I'm sorry, did I say something negative?
So, and you also got a bill just passed recently that I was kind of surprised to hear about.
Yes, actually, there's so much liability in California,
Yes.
and recently, there was a law passed that allowed people to use, like if a private landowner wanted to allow you to ride your ATV on their land or do other kinds of recreational purposes that relieved them from the liability of that under most circumstances. But aviation wasn't included. So if you had a private runway and somebody wanted to land on it with light sport or all the gliders and things that they have now, you couldn't do it. So I have a bill that just got out of its first committee, unanimous, that waives or exempts that liability so that people can allow people to land on their runways and land for recreational use.
Now, knowing how strong the ABA is, do you think they're going to challenge this bill?
Well, I was actually shocked because the first committee is usually where they really hit it hard, and they did not.
Wow.
I think we've crafted it carefully. I think that California needs this kind of reform, and it just adds another component to the recreational activities that currently exist.
Yeah, because liability here is it's crazy.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And I suppose it could come up yet, but the first committee is usually the real big test.
Yeah. Do you get involved much in workers' comp, Gene?
I am not on any workers' comp committee, but of course all those bills comes through the floor.
Sure, because that's something I know Shannon's involved in quite a bit. It's one of the reasons why she ran in the first place is because of the workers' comp.
Yes.
And it's, Schwarzenegger, I'll give him credit for what he did. He did do quite a bit when it came to workers' comp, but now it's gone back in the other direction, unfortunately, with Brown in office.
I got in on the tail end of that when I was in the assembly when Schwarzenegger was there. But you're correct. It's there's not much pushback on it now.
No, unfortunately. One other question about Jerry Brown before we go on. Do you think it's funny when I was at this little meeting he was at, we were allowed to ask questions afterwards, and they cut it off at 3, and my question was number 4 naturally. But my question for him was, are you going to be running for any other election, or is this election coming up your last election? Because I think he's going to be running for president in 2016 if there's any kind of faltering with Hillary or Joe Biden. What do you think?
Well, I have no idea what this governor will do next, but he's very healthy. He's very active in government, and certainly any governor from California cannot be ignored in a presidential race of either party. So I believe he has, last I heard, like $19 million in the bank for this campaign.
Wow.
And so he certainly doesn't need it for this campaign. I mean, he doesn't need $19 million. So it just leads you to believe that if he has other aspirations, he's working diligently on that plan.
Do you think any Republican has a chance against him in the governor's race?
Well, sometimes David does win against Goliath. In this case, it's a David and Goliath contest because of the money, the huge money, and the huge exposure an incumbent has. But I would always think that there's a chance for David, if he does the right thing, to inspire and ignite the people. And
who do you think David will be?
Well, that I am not sure of yet. I haven't met Neil Kashkari yet. I know Tim Donnelly well. I think a lot of the issues that Tim Donnelly does, I'm aligned with, particularly on some of the Second Amendment rights. But I think there's still a big question about who's going to raise the most money, because I think neither of them have the money to challenge Governor Brown at this time.
And money is the issue, as always, in politics.
You have to be able to get your name out there.
Sure, definitely. We are having a conversation with our in-studio guest, State Senator Gene Fuller.
Gene, there's another race that's coming up called the 32nd Assembly District, I believe. And the incumbent seems to be having some ethical problems. And I believe he had the same ethical problems when he ran his last campaign. Now, I guess there's two Republicans running. Do you think that's a good idea, having two Republicans run against the incumbent?
Well, there's, from the strategy point, political, strategy, people will tell you one thing or another. Here's what I think. I think that America needs all the best people to run, and in the primary, that's the time for the best people to get out there and run. I don't like to see two Republicans wound each other so that they become the wounded second man on the ballot. I think if they go out, they run a good, clean campaign, and they air out their ideas and vet their ideas, the competition brings out better ideas for everybody and puts a push on those who might think they're going to win, who might not have had it otherwise.
Is there anything that keeps a candidate from being so negative or even telling lies about another candidate?
Their own conscience, that's about it.
That's it. Unfortunately, it's obvious somebody doesn't have one.
Ooh.
Well, I think that the people generally, over time, are able to sort a lot of those things out. Maybe not at first, because it's difficult, it's complex.
Now, are you supporting any particular candidate for that race?
Well, as you know, Romeo Abdullah has been someone I've admired as a school board member in Delano for quite some time, and I think we have another good Republican candidate, but Romeo is clearly my choice. I've seen him work in the community for quite a number of years, very successfully, and certainly I trust him.
Gene, this has kind of been a bone of contention with me. One of the things that just kind of irks me. I can remember the first campaign I was involved in was Bill Dannemeyer running against Bill Allen. We've actually had Bill Allen on the show, and Bill Allen was in Reagan's administration, and Dannemeyer was a congressman in Southern California, in Orange County. And I remember sitting in a meeting, there were 10 of us with Bill and the Bills, and we said, you guys are going to kill each other off, and Senator Feinstein will win, where one of you has a chance against her. And they said, no, if it comes to that point, one of us will drop off, blah, blah, blah. Neither one of them dropped. And sure enough, they, one of them went wounding, limping into the general election and lost. So, and this seems to be something Republicans do all the time. They run two candidates that are identical. There isn't a whole lot of difference between Romeo and Pedro. Mm-hmm. One of them is going to go limping into the general, and who knows what will happen.
Well, I hope that they don't wound each other grievously. I hope that they bring out the best in each other, and they come up with some really great Republican ideas that will win the day. But it's America, and I think you have to balance what's good strategy with what's good for America, and in this case, the best man has to win, and we have to sort it out, and we have to figure out who tells the truth.
We've talked about water, We've talked about high-speed rail. What about fracking? What's the opinion up in Sacramento on fracking?
Well, unfortunately, most people in Sacramento haven't had any real experience with fracking or the oil industry in general, or how the oil industry here and fracking differs from back east. So there's a lot of pressure up there for a moratorium until everything is studied and everything is known, which that's not really even possible. And there's no like damage figures or anything that's like that drives the problem. It's just that they're afraid of it. They don't want it, and that's the end of the discussion. However, I don't know. Most of those people drive their cars to work. They turn on electricity. They have blow dryers for their hair. I don't know where they think this is all going to come from.
It's crazy.
Just like food.
Yep. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180 with our guest, State Senator Gene Fuller.